Last few months haven't exactly been the best of times for the Grand Old Party. And no, I'm not even going so far as to say here that the party itself is in the worst of shape. But when you go back to the election, you can argue not so much has really changed since November to even last Thursday. Two separate news items have shown some stark differences within the GOP, and as we try to figure out where the party's headed next, it's clear that a whole lot of Republicans are asking themselves the very same question that we are tonight, Andrew. And I thought that there was some real honesty and clarity, at least from the RNC chairman. They diagnosed what the real problems were. But then I heard the voices at CPAC, at least, and I'm wondering who's listening.
And this is just over the last few days. CPAC started Thursday, and this GOP autopsy came out just yesterday. Let's start with focusing on CPAC, the conservative conference held just outside Washington this past weekend, and then we'll get to the other report. Actually, let's start with the report that the RNC came up with yesterday, highlighting areas where they need to improve to give the Republican Party a better chance at winning a national election. That report, built as a 2012 autopsy, concluded that the party needs to better connect with minority, female, and young voters. And that same report stated the voters describe the current GOP most often as scary, narrow-minded, and out of touch, as well as a party of stuffy old men. But as we mentioned last night, that report and the way top party leaders are interpreting it is focused more on the outreach, the language, and the presentation of policies rather than focusing on changing any policies that may be turning off women, minorities, or young voters. Reaction? Mostly negative from the left and former Obama advisor Robert Gibbs. They're approaching this as a marketing problem, and that somehow if we change the color of the cereal box, that inside the cereal will taste much better and sell better. Also from left-leaning reporter Anna Marie Cox, this article entitled, "Republicans Still Don't Have a Clue How to Woo Women." Subtitle, according to CPAC, Democrats reduce women to their vaginas, but the GOP hasn't gotten much past the uterus. Even the most ardent backers of current conservative policies say that if the GOP can't fix its messaging, the consequences could be disastrous. Conservative talker Mark Levin shouting on his show that if Republican politicians cannot articulate Republican principles, we're going to lose, and the Republican Party is going to split, and there's going to be two parties. I think everybody can understand if there's going to be a split in the Republican Party, it's Tea Party versus sort of mainstream Republican. But is the problem in the packaging of the established policies of the GOP, or is this report an indication the GOP needs to rethink those policies in the first place?
I think it's mostly a perception problem. I really do feel that way, and I've been saying this for a long time. It is not only what you say, but it's how you say it and who's doing the talking. And I think we've failed on that front to a pretty large degree. So I don't think the party needs to necessarily change all of its principles. I would like to see, instead of all this talk about, well, are you Tea Party, are you conservative, to embrace the entire party. And I think Reince Priebus said it, you know, just because you're my 80% friend, it doesn't mean that you're my 20% enemy. And I think that's been a big problem. That it used to be a problem with the Democrats, and we've really done a good job at taking that over.
Jen, right? Jessica, client comes to you, and they're pro-choice, okay? Do you say to them in some ways, listen, either do a Romney here and rethink the position, or you're never going to get through a primary, or do you just hope that the party says, we're going to do the Reagan, we're going to do the Big Tent? Because it seems to me right now, and it's not just in the reddest states here, that you can't get through a primary if you don't pass a litmus test, and that's where the problem starts for Republicans. And that's where you got the yahoos, you know, from the South Carolinas and the Indianas that embarrass themselves in the debates here and then hurt you guys as a national brand. How do you get past that thing to say you can be an 80% Republican, that's enough?
I agree, and I think that's one of our biggest challenges right now, because if you see some of the Tea Party members or libertarian Rand Paul people sort of blasted the RNC's report, saying that, you know, it's catering towards the establishment Republicans and favoring that type of Republican brand. And I really do think that if we're going to be successful at the national level, that we need to sort of embrace a larger message. And look, I happen to be far more moderate on social issues, but and we need to respect people that may have not have those views, but let's not kill each other on it. We're in places like New York, we're already outnumbered. The presidential race is run in a few swing states. We see it decided in 7 or 8 states, and we need to have an overall message that that appeals to the general public.
He's about to explode. He's about to explode.
Go ahead.
I can't. It's like, this is why they don't get it. And, you know, in fairness to Jessica, she is right about one thing. We love watching another party in disarray and not being on party discipline.
You remember not too long ago.
Oh, there
you
is
guys.
no message
Yeah.
coming out. And the prime example, and why Jessica's so wrong on this, is you can't just change the packaging. The problem is at the core, at the essence of the Republican Party. And by the chairman's own admission during this discussion over the weekend, he said, we've been telling minorities, you're not welcome. We've been telling minorities, you're not welcome. Now, the rationale for why we have to change our position is because we're losing votes.
No,
Not
Scott, I
because we have to
disagree.
do the right thing
disagree
and
with
welcome
you.
people into
He's
our country.
But is it only just minorities, or do you need to include women?
No. Let me go a step further.
Okay.
Let me go a step further. So not only is he saying that we've been saying for years, and we did the wrong thing, he doesn't say. By telling them they weren't welcome, we didn't do the right thing. Nor has he done that with gays and lesbians, nor has he done that with women. They don't get that at the essence, their positions, their policies are turning voters off.
First of all, with minorities, the principles of the party are actually in line with a lot of them, but it goes back to my point of the
With
fact
who?
that we're not
With who? You can't
communicating
win a
with
vote.
them.
You can't win a
I think
vote.
Yes,
she's
we
saying
can.
the
It's because no
economic-
one spent any time going into those communities, and that is
We're telling
admittedly
them
the
they're not
fault of the
wanted.
party.
We're telling them
No
they're
one's
not
telling them
wanted.
they're not
arguments
wanted.
could work, but it's the social policy issues that I think hurt with those outreach groups, with women, with minorities,
women,
with
yeah,
young people.
clearly with over gay marriage, there's an issue, but it doesn't mean
Just a small.
it's not every Republican is opposed to gay
guess-
marriage.
Yeah, but that's
I
the
know-
problem.
I know we're-
That
Like,
is
we need to
exactly
go
the point.
over-
You have a
we need to
split
have
in
Jess,
your
a-
party.
right.
You don't
we're
have
up
a
against
policy.
the break here, but my
You don't
only
have a
question
policy.
is, I would have thought by now, since November, that more would have changed. And if you close your eyes,
Measure
we
based
could be
on
June.
what, though?
Well, look at the
Based
fights
on
in
what?
Washington right now. If I was running the Republican Party, I would be like, guys, before the Democrats get there, we're going to get ahead of them on immigration reform if we want to get ahead with the Latino vote.
I thought Rubio was out there on immigration reform in
No,
Tennessee. Yes,
not
they
as
are.
much.
They came out with their own plan.
Well, where's
the
he been?
RNC
Where did he
report
go?
yesterday
Where did
just
Rubio
came out
go?
with a very
Well,
clear plan
Jess, you gotta-
embracing immigration reform. You guys want to view
you have
it
one
through this
senator who
one.
decides after 2 years he finds out his son's gay that he's going to change his position. And there's like a
Okay, and
celebration
Hillary Clinton
where the whole
finally
party changes
made-
things to having a great
Okay,
day.
and Hillary Clinton just made the same exact thing. So
That's
And
a
the
good
debate
point.
will
Come on.
That's a
continue
good point.
during
There
the
are
break.
three
When we come back, we'll
Republicans
talk
in
New York
Washington
politics. Stay
that
with us.
want same-sex marriage.